Hey, welcome to this week's podcast. Now, a couple of months back, I was listening to someone on Instagram, a totally random guy who's not so random to me anymore because I've started following him. His name's Dr. Daniel Amen, and he's a psychiatrist, a brain health expert, and he spent decades studying the impact of habits, mindset, and parenting on mental resilience. And this quote for me was like the most monumental aha moment. It really took my breath away. And I don't know, it just made so much sense to me. And basically what he said was if you do too much for your kids, you build your self-esteem by stealing theirs. And oh God, it almost, as I said, took my breath away when I read
Yeah.
that, because I thought of all of the times that I have done too much for my kids, and perhaps I think I've been pretty good with rescuing them from situations, but definitely doing too much for my kids I'm guilty of,
Yeah.
and how it makes me feel good to do things
Yes.
for them.
Yeah.
But am I disabling them in the process? I really wanted to unpack this with you, Jane, because I know
Yeah.
that you've got lots to say on this topic. And
Yeah.
we have talked about it before, and I'm not sure if it's privately or on a podcast. But yeah, I just really wanted to unpack that piece around doing too much for your kids, building up your own self-esteem, but really robbing them of their own.
Yeah. I think it's a really common thing. Like I definitely know as a parent, I've done too much for my kids. And
Yeah,
what kind of runs in the background of that is we all remember our own childhood struggles and pain. And we try to kind of stop our kids from feeling the same struggles and pain, and don't realize that those struggles and pain have created who is right here today. You know, those struggles and pain kind of led you to maybe to your sole purpose, or they've led you to get curious or to do something different to kind of overcome those struggles and pain. But I know definitely especially as a young mum, I would definitely step in and rescue and do way too much for my kids because I didn't want them to feel the things that I remembered, you know, feeling rejected by other kids, or feeling like the odd kid out, or feeling like I didn't have all the things the other kids had. So yeah, it's a really common thing. Just want to name that we all do it. A lot of it's unconscious. You know, we're trying to avoid our kids kind of having the pain we had,
yeah,
and unconscious for that reason, and also unconscious because a lot of us go through parenting not wanting to be judged as bad parents, and in our culture, parenting is kind of seen, or we kind of celebrate parents that do go in and rescue. And, you know, the parent that does take the lunch up to the child, or the parent that does make the child's life easier, is kind of celebrated in our culture, which is, I think, is a real shame in today's world. Like, I think of, you know, when you and I were kids and when our parents were kids, it was so different. Like, we literally left home in the morning, we were exploring riverbanks and outside, and we were kind of up to our own devices until late in the afternoon when we came home. And I just think of all that we learnt in that time, my brothers and I. You know, we learnt to kind of take care of each other. We learnt to really know what was around us. And it's kind of mind-blowing to think we didn't have phones. Mum didn't know where we were. But we were kind of navigating, crossing streets. We were navigating weird people and kind of how to keep ourselves safe, or, you know, what little kids perceived as weird people.
yeah,
And that there's so much learning in that, and relational skills in that, which is so, so important. So yeah, I think it's a common thing that we all do. I think our culture kind of encourages us to do it. And I love that this Dr. Daniel Amen is coming out and saying, hey, it's actually really not a good thing. Your kids don't learn how to be self-sufficient adults if you do all the stuff for them. Like, he tells a story of his kids leaving lunch at home, and that was it. they learned that if you don't take your lunch, then you go hungry that day. And
Yes.
so he said, so they learned to take lunch, like rather than racing up and taking their lunch and feeling guilty if you didn't. So for me, I just loved hearing him talk and loved him kind of really supporting parents to actually put a bit back onto their kids so their kids do develop the skills to be responsible adults, accountable adults, and resilient adults, and adults that have meaning and purpose in their lives because they found it themselves through their struggles and adversities.
Yeah, and confidence as well, because from what he suggests, that we're undermining our kids' confidence every
Yeah,
time, picking up the pieces for them, and like
yeah,
you said, rushing off to school to deliver their lunchbox.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
interesting because as you're giving that analogy, like I'm guilty of, say, packing the lunchbox for my son who is completely old enough and capable enough to pack his own lunchbox.
yeah,
But in the same vein, if he forgets it and he leaves it at home, I don't drop it to him. It is put in
yeah,
the fridge and he takes that exact same lunchbox the next day, even though it might not be as fresh and nice.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it is a little bit about balance, isn't it, as well?
Well, it's that, and because I think a lot of the stuff I do, it's a little bit selfish. Like I just do it because then it kind of saves time.
True.
It's more efficient. I don't have to have the argument, but I'm
Yes.
actually robbing my kids
Yes.
of so much by just doing it. And, it's for my own kind of selfish needs, and I do rob my kids. Like I love how like he talks about, like you say, it undermines kids' confidence because when we do stuff for kids, we kind of send the message that I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can handle it, so I'll do it for you. And so they never develop that muscle to do things. And this is even like a really important. Erickson is a famous. I was going to say guy, but that's not the right terminology. So there's Erickson kind of created a theory around how we grow,
Yes.
and one of the really important developmental milestones, according to Erickson, is where we are able to take initiative. We are able to get stuff done. And I think that happens around, oh gosh, it's between the age of 6 and 10. And he talks about that if you don't get those opportunities to do stuff, to take initiative, to work things out, then it really undermines your self-esteem.
Yeah.
So it's in those developmental theories as well.
Yeah.
But another thing that Dr. Amen talks about, which I think is really important in today's world, is when we do things for our kids, we rob them of being with feelings like frustration, being with feelings of where you've just got to keep trying,
Yeah.
that
Disappointment,
grit and
failure.
determination.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I remember in my Gestalt training, my trainer saying to me, with clients, it's okay to let them be frustrated. Frustration is the biggest impetus for change.
Yes.
And if we don't allow ourselves or our kids to get frustrated, then they never, there's not that push to change and grow. They stay stuck.
Yes.
And then kind of for any of us that feels stuck, it's not a good feeling. Like the frustration and working through that frustration is like, it just gives us so many, it's like weight training for our emotional resilience, and
Yeah.
our kids need that. I see in people that haven't been allowed frustration, just things like having to talk to Telstra for 20 minutes and they don't have capacity for it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, it can develop from at that young age being rescued from difficult things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
where you kind of, when anything gets difficult, you've got no emotional regulation around it. You lose it, or you just go, stuff it. I'm not going to worry about it. And so in your life, you don't progress, or in not doing hard things, you don't kind of achieve maybe what you could.
Yes. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think, obviously we've both got older kids now, and it's interesting, like in my world, I'm actually seeing the results of
Yeah.
parents really problem solving and like, next level micromanaging their kids when they were little and even right through their teens and into adulthood.
Yeah.
And, I've seen it with friends' kids who've gone off traveling and they just haven't coped with the experience because there's so many different variables and things that do go wrong when you're traveling,
Yeah.
and, not being able to cope when things have gone wrong.
Yeah.
I suppose I feel proud of my daughter because she
Mm.
has bravely gone off, from the age of 18 and
Yeah.
done some really hard traveling through, third world countries and some of it by herself,
Yeah.
and encountered many a problem. And I've only found out about a lot of it once she solved it. And
Yes.
I've not been dragged into the drama of
Yes.
dealing with her problems. She's actually been able to book all of her own flights and plan her own itineraries and do
Mm.
all of those things herself. So,
Yeah.
as I said, I can
Which
really,
is empowering, hey?
it
Like,
is.
it's so empowering when you can do that yourself. It's
Yes.
actually terrifying when you can't rely on yourself
Yes.
to do stuff, especially overseas or anywhere, even here, if you can't rely on yourself to kind of, like I said, talk to Telstra or pay a bill or,
Even things like make a restaurant booking. Like, I know my
yes,
kids have
yeah,
friends who aren't able to make a phone call and make an inquiry about
or go
some.
to the shops and buy bread.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and I don't mean from an anxiety perspective. I mean from where they've just never been allowed to do it,
Yes.
and they've never had to solve a problem. So they've never
Yeah.
had to kind of, and again, this, I hope we're not sounding judgy, because I can see where I've stepped in heaps for my
100%.
kids to make things easier, and for my own selfish reasons, so that my life was easier, and because I was busy or stressed or whatever.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
I can see that it's really not good. And I guess for me, I think in this day and age, it's even more prevalent than when our kids were little. You know, there's screens. I feel like living for parents is so much more stressful,
Yes.
because I feel like everything's got faster. But I guess for me, the importance of us having this conversation is that even though it does take a little more time, I think, and there is the discomfort of watching your kid with their frustration, or watching your kid kind of try to work out how to solve a problem. It's just so good for their brains and their emotional resilience and their life from childhood onward. Like, I
Yeah.
love what Maria Montessori, she always spoke about, like trying to make your child as independent as possible, so that if you're not around, they're going to be okay. And I think we forget we're preparing our kids for adulthood. And I'm not saying you want to expose them to stuff, that are adult kind of things, but you do want to give them the chance to fail, to get frustrated, to have a problem that they've got to work out, like that. So I had a friend recently, I don't think she'll mind me telling this story, and her son got frustrated and scratched the car. And so she was like, well, it's not an okay thing to do, and you're going to have to pay it off. So here's a payment plan, and this is what it's going to look like. And so it's like, kind of, this is the action and this is the consequence. And
Yeah.
because that's life is, you can't just go and do stuff and get away with it, kind of thing.
Can we maybe talk about, just to give, because I understand that many people who are listening perhaps have younger children. So I
Yes.
don't know, as you're talking, I'm thinking of ways that I perhaps have developed grit and resilience in my own kids and allowed
Yeah.
them to become, like, they're both extremely confident humans.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, I'll share a couple of examples. You can share some examples,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everyday things. So one example for me is if we've ever been out at the shops or walking into the bakery and, say one of my kids said, can I have, I don't know, a kombucha or whatever, like whatever
Yeah.
they're requesting. I've said, yeah, no worries. And I step aside and let them do the ordering. So,
Yes. Yep.
I allow
Yep.
them to speak for themselves and to ask and express what it is that they need. Same in a restaurant. If they said, can you ask the waiter for some water or something? I'm like, no, but you can. And, then they've learned to
Yeah.
actually ask for what they need.
Yeah.
I did have another example. Of course, it's gone straight out of my mind. Oh, I always had a rule with my kids in that I would buy them one school hat at the start of the term,
Yeah.
um, and it was their responsibility to look after that hat.
Yeah.
And if they lost it,
Yeah.
then they had to pay for the replacement hat out of their own pocket money.
Yeah.
I also never responded to left lunchboxes left at home or homework left at home.
Yeah.
They had to suffer the consequences, and definitely I can even remember conversations with when my kids have had detentions before, just for tardy behaviour generally.
Yeah.
But when the teacher has phoned and said, look, Jesse's got a detention for talking, he just won't stop talking in class or whatever. His
Yeah.
cat was a big one for him. His
Yeah.
cat was either forgotten or lost pretty much most of his life, schooling life.
Yeah.
And, the teacher said, look, I'm really sorry. They were always really apologetic. And I'd be like, fantastic idea. I think it's a great idea. And
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
the teachers would say to me, oh, we're so used to parents making excuses for their kids or giving us reasons why we should not give their kid a detention. Whereas I was completely and totally supportive of
Yeah.
whatever it was that the teacher saw fit in that circumstance. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I
yeah, do you
agree. I'm trying to think of examples for me.
throw your thoughts here? But
Yeah. So I know I wasn't as good. Like when my kids lost hats, I wish I had been more like, well, kind of that's it. You've got to, you lose it, you got to find it, or
I
what
was forced into it with particularly Jess because he's just
lost so many. I think it's
literally.
great though. I mean, I look at my son now with water bottles. He's just a shocker. And it's because I've been too soft.
Yeah.
And he would lose it and be like, oh, and then he'd take mine and just, yeah. So for me, I think definitely around them getting their own food.
Yep.
Yep. And
That's
they both cook
I've been,
really well now, which I really love.
that's
And, they've often come to the cupboard and fridge and we've got no food. And it's like, yeah, no, we've got food. And not rescuing, not kind of going in or just buying the stuff they've wanted, like snacks and, the packet stuff. And yeah, like you say, if they got in trouble at school, or definitely always, I thought that was really important that you're accountable.
yeah.
And in friend situations, that was for them. Like I was always there as a sounding board, and if they needed support. But things like, if they spilt something, they would clean it up. If they made a mess, they would clean it up.
Yeah.
Their bedrooms, just that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to think when they were little.
I think the key message here really in us sharing it, because as you're talking, there are things that, I definitely, being the cook of the house,
Yes.
I don't like my kids being in my workspace. This is my home office. It's
Yes.
where I do all of my creative work.
Yeah.
And I find it really disruptive for them to come through my kitchen. So I tend to take over. And
Yeah.
as a result, I mean, look, they can find their way around the kitchen really if they have to, but
Yeah.
I do rescue them when it comes to feeding them. There's
Yeah.
always something on the go.
Yeah.
So I think the key message here is that, and you said that you were a bit of a shocker with just continually replacing lost items.
Yeah.
The key message here is this isn't about being perfect all of the time. I think
definitely
this is
not.
about doing your best. And
Yes.
as I said, after I heard that quote, and I hope for some people it's really kind of triggered a little kind of aha moment like it did for me, that it just gets you thinking the next time that you jump to rescue your kid or to step in or to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Think about the long-term consequences of doing so, and that kind of as I said, I love the way he phrased it, that, if you do too
Yes.
much from your kids, you build your self-esteem. And it does. It's
Yes.
like,
And you
oh,
rob theirs. Yep.
I can provide my kids with healthy meals in my case,
Yes. Yep.
but
Yep.
I'm
Totally.
actually, robbing them of their own self-esteem and their own
Yep.
capacity to develop a skill, I suppose, that's really, really important as they go forth into
Yeah.
adulthood.
Skill, resilience, confidence, and self-esteem. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's the little things. Like I can't think. I'm sure there's lots of little things. When your kids are little, where you can kind of sit back and like, can I give them a moment to see if they can work it out? Like navigating even a playground. Can
Yes.
I give them a moment to see if they can navigate those steps? I mean, obviously you're going to know where they're at developmentally and what's safe and what's not, but can I, and I remember something I was really good at as a kid was that real, yeah, you can do it. You've got it. I'm right here,
Yep.
but you've got this.
Yes.
Like for climbing a tree or more doing stuff outside, more doing stuff with their bodies where it's like, yeah, you've got it. Well, you'll be fine. I'm right here. And just little things like that where you, instead of going in to kind of help them up a step or put them on a swing or, yeah, it's like letting them kind of have that bit of a struggle and have a go at it. And
Yep.
not to the point where you're letting them get too defeated, but where
Sure.
you're like, you have a go. They're building that muscle for, just trying, having a go and seeing where they get to. And I might just help you with this little bit, but man, look how far you've got. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's a personality thing, isn't it? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, I really can't take credit for Saoirse's bravery with everything burst into, because she was always a toddler that could do everything herself. That was her classic response. I'd go to help her. Stop, I do it myself. That was her kind of response to
Yeah.
everything. Whereas my son is lazy. He's happy to just step aside and let everyone else take over and do the thing. So
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is that personality dynamic as well as.
Yeah, 100%. And as a parent, it's I say this to a lot of parents, you know you and you know your child. And
Yes.
for me, I'm hoping this is just to kind of, like you said, just to kind of support you to get a bit curious, like,
Yeah.
and it's always great for us to be self-aware and
Yeah.
to be curious about, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for them or am I doing this for me? Is this going to serve them or is this for me?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, it's just been a moment of pause. Each
Yes.
time I've gone to kind of dive in and have, with repeated habits and patterns, I've kind
Yeah.
of had to pause and think, yeah, like you said. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's been a great conversation. Hopefully that single sentence has, given everyone listening, opportunity, like you said, to kind of reflect and pause and see if it resonates. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.